Now, the sad news that the film star Val Kilmer, who played Batman and Jim Morrison, as well as starring in Top Gun, has died at the age of 65. His daughter told US media that he'd been suffering from pneumonia.
I feel like better down. I feel wonderful.
Val Kilmer, our iconic star, was once the fearless face behind some of Hollywood's biggest roles. But when his health took a serious turn, many were left with questions and very few answers. For years, rumors circulated around his battle with throat cancer, his dramatic weight loss, and his sudden retreat from the spotlight.
You know, he wasn't that superstar yet, but, you know, Tony Scott's gone, and Jerry Bruckheimer, the most successful producer ever now, but his partner.
Now, after his death, his doctor has finally broken silence, and what he revealed has shocked everyone. So what did his doctor reveal? And was Val hiding more than we thought? Join us as we uncover everything Val's doctor said. The illness Val Kilmer tried so hard to hide. For years, Val Kilmer's battle with illness stayed hidden from the public. While fans thought he had simply stepped away from the spotlight, the truth was far more heartbreaking. He had been living with throat cancer, quietly going through treatments like chemotherapy and radiation, all while keeping the struggle to himself. His voice had changed, and he even had a tracheostomy. Yet he still refused to let the world know how much pain he was really in. It wasn't until after his passing that people truly understood the weight of what he had endured. Now his doctor has come forward with something no one expected to hear. What he shared has left many shocked, especially because Val had always seemed like the kind of person who wanted to appear strong, no matter what. He was a private person and often avoided sympathy. But now, hearing what his doctor is saying raises one big question. Why would he choose to hide something this serious? Keep watching to find out. Val Kilmer was always a private person, and when his health began to fail, he kept it to himself. For years, he lived with a secret, quietly enduring something that eventually changed his life forever. It started with small, seemingly insignificant symptoms, such as pain in his throat, some swelling, and a voice that didn't sound the same anymore. However, he didn't tell anyone, and he continued to appear at events, forcing a smile while dealing with something far deeper than anyone could see. By the time people began to notice something was off, it was already serious. His voice had changed, his appearance was different, and rumors began to spread. But Val stayed silent, refusing to show weakness. He believed in pushing through and not showing pain. This was a trait that had defined him throughout his career. Meanwhile, inside, his body was fighting a battle that he could no longer control. It wasn't until around 2017 that the truth finally came out, and it was revealed that Val Kilmer had been battling throat cancer, a secret he had kept hidden from the world. By then, he had already undergone treatments that changed his life forever, including surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation, all of which took a toll on his body. As a result of the treatment, doctors had to perform a tracheostomy, a procedure that left him with a breathing tube in his throat, affecting how he spoke. Consequently, his once deep and commanding voice had become raspy and faint. However, despite his struggles, Val remained quiet about his illness, giving very few interviews. And when he did speak, he kept things vague. He said he was fine, and that he was healing, but behind closed doors, the truth was very different. At that time, people close to him started to worry, as they could see that something wasn't right. His weight had dropped, he looked tired, and although he tried to keep going, the illness had taken a toll on him.
I think it works and ended up being successful because there was a lot of passion about the story, and Kevin Jarre, who got fired as a director who wrote it, really put together a wonderful cast.
But in 2019, Val Kilmer announced that he was cancer-free, and many people believed that he had finally recovered from his ordeal. However, while he may have been declared cancer-free, The effects of the treatment still lingered. The breathing tube remained, his voice never came back fully, and his body was still dealing with the aftermath of everything he had gone through. Even when he appeared in Top Gun, Maverick, his scenes were limited and his speech was digitally altered to make it sound like him again. But in reality, he had already lost the ability to speak clearly. Over time, things began to worsen again. His immune system had been weakened by the treatments, making him more vulnerable to infections, especially ones that affected the lungs. That's when pneumonia entered the picture. In early 2025, Val Kilmer was admitted to the hospital after showing signs of severe respiratory distress, which started with a cough, then a fever, and he was struggling to breathe. At first, people thought it might be a minor infection, but things escalated quickly. The pneumonia spread fast and became very dangerous for someone in his condition, as the breathing tube made it harder for his lungs to clear the infection, and the damage from his past cancer treatment made it even worse. And by the time doctors tried to manage the infection, it was too late. His lungs were already weak, and his body was exhausted from the years of fighting. Though they tried to keep him stable, his condition continued to decline. The pneumonia, combined with everything his body had already gone through, was just too much. And on April 1st, 2025, he passed away, leaving behind a legacy of strength and resilience. Many who had followed him through his journey were heartbroken, remembering the strong, confident actor who had once been at the top of his game. But now, they were learning just how much pain he had been carrying, silently, and for so long. But here's the most heartbreaking part of all this. Stay tuned. Val Kilmer's quiet beginning that no one paid attention to. The news of his passing sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry, leaving fans and colleagues stunned and saddened by the loss of a talented and courageous individual. As the world mourned the loss of Val Kilmer, many couldn't help but wonder what had shaped him into the private person he became. And when you take a closer look at his early life, it's easier to understand why he kept so much to himself and why he chose to keep his health issues private. Because from the beginning, Val Kilmer was always dealing with something beneath the surface. Val Edward Kilmer was born on December 31st, 1959, in Los Angeles, California. He was the second of three sons, born to Gladys Swanette and Eugene Doris Kilmer. His mother had Swedish roots, while his father came from a mix of Irish, German, and Cherokee ancestry. His father worked in aerospace equipment while also investing in real estate. So even though they had some stability, their home life was far from peaceful. When Val was just 8 years old, his parents got divorced. That kind of event can be confusing and painful for a child, especially at such a young age. 2 years later, in 1970, his mother married a man named William Bernard Leach. It was a fresh start for the family in some ways, but the emotional scars from that early split never really healed. Val had to adjust not only to a new family structure, but also to a new father figure. And while life went on, another tragedy was waiting just around the corner. Val had a younger brother named Wesley, who was born in 1961. The two shared a close bond, as brothers often do, but Wesley had epilepsy. Then, in 1977, something happened that haunted Val forever. Wesley had a seizure and tragically drowned in a jacuzzi at just 16 years old. It wasn't just a tragic accident, it was a heartbreak that left the entire family shaken. Losing a sibling that young and in such a painful way changes you. And Val was only 17 at the time. He didn't talk about it much in public, but years later he admitted that Wesley's death stayed with him. It became a quiet part of his identity, and it even influenced his work. In the 2002 movie, The Salton Sea, Val showed the weight he has been carrying because of his brother's death in his performance. He poured his grief into his roles, maybe because it was the only way he knew how to process it. Furthermore, Val was raised in Christian Science, a religious belief that avoids traditional medical treatment and believes strongly in spiritual healing. He kept those beliefs with him through most of his life. And maybe that's also part of the reason he didn't talk about his illness openly. He had grown up believing that healing was more spiritual than physical, and that silence was strength. However, despite the hardships at home, Val had a creative spark from a young age. He attended Chatsworth High School in California, where he was in the same class as actors Kevin Spacey and Mare Winningham. He even dated Mare during high school. People around him could see that he had talent, but more than that, they saw how seriously he took acting. He wasn't doing it for attention, he was doing it because it meant something deeper to him. Later, he attended the Hollywood Professional School to continue working on his skills. And then, something incredible happened. At just 17 years old, Val became the youngest person ever accepted into the Juilliard School's drama division in New York City. That was a huge deal. Juilliard is known for its tough standards and elite training, and for someone that young to get in meant he had something special. He joined Group 10, where he learned from some of the best, and it became the foundation for the kind of actor he became. Juilliard shaped him into a method actor. That means he didn't just act out a character's emotions, he lived them. He fully became the role, diving into every detail and carrying the weight of the character with him, even after filming ended. That kind of acting isn't easy. It takes a toll on you emotionally and physically, especially when you're carrying personal grief like Val was. And even though he had already seen more tragedy than most kids his age, he didn't let that stop him from chasing something bigger. He kept moving forward, and he found his escape in storytelling and performance. That was what led him into the world of acting, where everything was about to change. But here is the most astonishing part: Val Kilmer's journey through his career and his fight to keep going.
Well, I had a lot of good press, too. My defense is that I've been working. I've been out of the country.
After finishing school, he started acting in New York theater. He took on roles that allowed him to dig deep into complex emotions, and he worked alongside stars like Sean Penn and Kevin Bacon. He was also one of those actors who could play almost any kind of role. He was famous for playing cool, intense characters, but behind the scenes, his life was full of ups and downs. He had big dreams and worked very hard, and later on, he had to fight through his serious health problems. Val's first big movie was a comedy called Top Secret in 1984. In that film, he played a rock and roll singer who ends up in a spy adventure. Val didn't only act in the movie, he also sang all the songs himself, and he even released a full album in the voice of his character. The next year, he did another comedy called Real Genius, which made even more people notice him. But it was the movie Top Gun in 1986 that made him a huge star. He played Iceman, the confident fighter pilot who went head-to-head with Tom Cruise's character. The movie became a massive hit, and Val Kilmer became a household name after that. Even though Val was famous, he still took his acting very seriously. He didn't just want to be a movie star, he wanted to be a great actor. That's why he said no to some big roles if he didn't feel they were right for him. Like when he turned down a role in Blue Velvet, a film that later became very popular. Instead, he kept looking for parts that helped him grow. In 1988, he starred in a fantasy movie called Willow. That's where he met his future wife, Joanne Whalley. That same year, he also went back to the stage to play Hamlet, which is one of the hardest roles in all of theater. In 1991, Val played Jim Morrison, the lead singer of The Doors, in a movie about Morrison's life. He worked hard to sound and act just like Morrison. He studied him for months and even sang like him. People who knew Jim Morrison said Val did such a good job that it was hard to tell their voices apart. That role proved how deep Val would go into a character. Then, in 1995, he was chosen to play Batman in the movie Batman Forever. The director picked him because he liked Val's work in Tombstone, where Val had played Doc Holliday. Batman Forever did well in theaters, but Val didn't enjoy filming it. According to him, the Batman suit made it hard for him to move, and even harder to show emotion. After that, he didn't come back for the next Batman movie because he didn't feel like he could do his best in the role. And there were also some issues with the movie schedule. Furthermore, Val kept working and he took on all kinds of roles. He acted in the crime movie Heat with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, and he played a blind man in a movie called At First Sight. In another movie called Spartan, he played a tough government agent. No matter the role, Val always gave it everything he had. In his personal life, Val married Joanne Whalley in 1988. They had 2 children together. Their daughter Mercedes was born in 1991, and their son Jack came along in 1995. But things didn't work out between them, and they divorced in 1996. Over the years, Val was also linked to other famous women, including Cher, Cindy Crawford, and Angelina Jolie. In his book, I'm Your Huckleberry, which came out in 2020, he admitted that he had been single for 20 years and said he felt very lonely sometimes. In 2014, when Val's life took a hard turn, he got throat cancer.
My voice improved, and some bits are better than others. I intend to work until I'm 152.
He tried to keep it quiet at first, but he eventually needed serious treatment. He had chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery. One of the surgeries damaged his throat, so his voice changed and became hard to understand. It was a tough time, but Val didn't give up. He stayed close to his family and kept doing creative work whenever he could. In 2021, a documentary called Val came out, and it showed a very real and emotional side of his life. It had videos from his childhood, clips from his old movies, and behind-the-scenes footage that he had recorded himself over the years. People got to see not just the actor, but the man behind the scenes who was fighting to live a normal life again. Even after all of that, Val still returned to the big screen. In 2022, he came back as Iceman in Top Gun, Maverick, and fans loved seeing him again. Even though his voice had changed, the moment was powerful and emotional. It showed how much strength he still had and how much people still cared about him. Val also explored other talents. He wrote books, painted, and kept creating things even when his health made it hard. He had a deep love for art in all forms, and he never stopped trying to express himself. And in April 2025, Val Kilmer passed away at the age of 65. His children shared the news and asked for privacy. They stated they were proud of their father and everything he stood for. After the news broke, fans and actors from all over the world paid tribute to him. Many people shared stories about how Val inspired them with his acting and his strength. Val Kilmer's life was full of highs and lows. He had fame, love, heartbreak, and sickness. But he never stopped giving his best. Whether he was on stage, in a blockbuster film, or just living through pain, he stayed true to who he was. He showed us that being brave doesn't always mean fighting in movies. Sometimes it means fighting real battles, quietly and with all your heart. And that's what made Val Kilmer unforgettable. So, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think Val Kilmer's silence about his illness was an act of strength? And what part of Val Kilmer's story hits you the hardest? Drop it in the comments section below. If you enjoyed watching this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more. Also, click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.